Either way, you're setting patterns. You're either setting patterns, taking you to a place where you don't like yourself, or you're setting patterns and putting you in a place where you love yourself.
Right.
So you got to break one of those patterns, right?
Well, yeah, and also you can mess up sometimes, right? You can be in a good pattern and fall off for a second, but you have to be mindful that it's happening and get right back in line.
That's exactly right.
If you're a go-getter, faith-driven, and family-focused, and need to break through to your next level, this is the podcast for you. Your self-talk can reshape every area of your life. It's time to dream and think big. Welcome to the Self-Talk Experience with Darnell and Tracy Self. It's time to elevate, baby. Let's get into the show.
Hey, welcome to the Self-Talk Experience. This is Darnell Self and
I'm Tracy Self. Hello.
Another episode of the Self-Talk, where the things we say to ourselves about ourselves eventually determines what and even who we attract for ourselves.
Yes.
So since we have on, it's the Self-Love for Me tease.
Yes.
Today, let's talk about self-love, because it's important that we love ourselves. How we feel about ourselves typically is shown in an expression in how we build relationships with others.
Well, how we feel about ourselves is what we accept too.
Yeah.
In relationships from other people.
Yep.
Whether it's business, a marriage, a friendship, anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Nope. I completely agree. You know, sometimes people want others to love them, but we don't love ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're treating them how to love us based on how we love ourselves. So they see how we treat ourselves, what we say to ourselves. So we actually give them permission to say the same things. But
oftentimes we feel like we want to do anything for someone else to love us, and that will make us love ourselves more. Sometimes it goes the opposite way. You have to love yourself to get the love you want and need. Yeah. But sometimes we do it the opposite way. And if we get the love, we do what we need to do to get it, then that'll make us feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, so true.
Right?
So true. So
how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so a few things.
Because sometimes you don't even know you're doing it.
Yep. It feels like you actually lobbed me the ball for an alley-oop, you knew.
No, I'm just asking.
I know you didn't. That's what I'm saying. For our audience, they probably think, oh man, we talk about, hey, so what topics we're going to cover based on our own experiences and experience of those who are around us.
Right, yeah.
But you actually didn't, we didn't prepare that part. But I do have the answer for you.
That's because I'm good. That's because I'm so good. We're a good team.
It's your self-love for me, because you're really loving yourself right now.
What do you want me to do?
You really learn how to love yourself.
It's just what comes out, babe. Sure. Because I've watched 70 some odd episodes of the Self-Talk Experience.
Hey, that'll do it right there.
I do. I go back. I watch when we record. I go back and watch them.
I see you all the time. I come in the bedroom and see you watching it.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity for all of us to love ourselves even better than how we love ourselves currently. All of us, no matter how much you love yourself. So a couple of different ways to do that. One is to forgive yourself. We all have done something in our past, no matter who you are, that we regret. We're ashamed of it, embarrassed by it, and sometimes we hate ourselves for it.
Yeah, but also it's hard because you could have confidence in a lot of areas, but then some you don't, right? So you can be confident in your looks, but you may not be confident in your smarts, or vice versa. So sometimes it's hard because you feel like you are loving yourself, but to a certain extent.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But so you're actually going ahead of where I am.
Oh, because I'm so good. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not even talking about confidence right now.
Okay.
We'll get there, but I think right now, the first step I like to stay on, just to make sure that folks who are watching and listening are able to take either mental notes or physical notes. I'm man, I want to love myself more. I want to love myself more. So number one is just forgiveness. So regardless of how confident you are and how smart you think you are, or how pretty you think you are, or handsome, we're just saying forgive yourself from past mistakes.
Right. I got that.
Period. Right. So first of all, to forgive yourself, you have to be willing to address what it was, to think back and you know what? These are moments in my life where I felt like I hate myself. So hate and love are not the same.
Taking accountability, though, is very, very uncomfortable.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So if you hate yourself from something that you've done in the past, whether you hate yourself from being in that season or staying in that season longer than you know you should have, or hate myself because I was the cause of that, I took full responsibility, or I hate, whatever it is, you can't love and hate. So, I mean, you can, but you walk around with this conflict. right? It's this dichotomy, and we deal with it as humans often. And we're like, I don't even like myself, but we don't sometimes tell other people that because, again, it's something that we're ashamed of typically. We don't want anybody to really know about it. And maybe our best friend, maybe a sibling knows.
Right.
But not too many people know about it. So I would say forgive yourself for that. Right? It's one of the steps that I've learned when I'm coaching other people how to move forward is how to stop replaying the movie of their past that they don't like. And it interferes. It becomes a barrier for their future.
Wow. Yeah.
So forgive yourself. And sometimes that movie will try to play again and remind you of who you used to be.
Well, sometimes it's not just you. Sometimes other people can remind you.
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
That part, you could be at a great place and then get to be with someone and they make you take 2 steps back.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't be moving on. Maybe I haven't addressed it yet. Like you start second guessing yourself.
Or they just trying to, look, some people refuse to see you as a person you are today. They only want you to recall who you used to be. Sometimes because it makes them feel better.
Or sometimes because they can manipulate you and keep you where they can keep you in a safe space for them.
Yep.
Because if you grow more and forgive yourself more, you might not want to be bothered with them.
That's
right?
a true statement. That is very true.
You might realize, whoa, you're not who I need to be around at all.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember we went to a marriage retreat, and one of the things that we learned there was that if you're going to forgive yourself or your partner, you are not ever allowed to bring back up the things you said you forgive them for. So if you say, otherwise you can't say I forgive you. Right? So even if you're thinking you want to pull it out in an argument, you want to say it so badly, you're not allowed to bring it up again.
Yeah, but forgiveness and letting it go are the same. But sometimes in your mind, you don't feel like it is.
Because you haven't forgotten. That's
right.
different. Yeah.
So you're like, I forgive you, but did I really let it go?
Right.
And forgiving somebody and let it go kind of goes hand in hand, but it also is a detachment too.
Yeah. Well, that's why therapy is good.
Yeah.
Right? Or
it's just easier to say that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
But I'm thinking about it, and it's like,
sometimes professional help is good, right? Because sometimes we don't realize there's a root there. So we just pull up the plant itself. We're like, oh, we're good. And if anybody's ever done any gardening, like during the pandemic, my friend behind the camera became a botanist.
Well, so did you. You were all outside. You haven't been out there again since.
Really gonna call me out?
Yeah, but the plant stuff, they look so nice, and now you don't go out there anymore.
I have a landscaper now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So listen, it does help. Sometimes therapy. We're talking about in step 1, to love yourself, forgive yourself, right? Forgive yourself for the past, forgive yourself for the things you used to do, because it doesn't mean you're still that person, even though other people may make you feel like you are.
Right.
So step 1 to loving yourself, forgive yourself.
Got it.
Step 2 to loving yourself is journaling. Journaling. Sometimes we forget what we should be grateful for. And because of that, we're thinking about all the things we don't have, all the things that we haven't been able to do, how long it's taken us to do it. Like somebody else, man, they, in 2 years, they were able to do this. I've been doing this for 12 years. And so journaling helps you, especially when it's a gratitude journal. You're able to say what you're thankful for and what you're grateful for. This allows you to start loving yourself for who you are and the things that you have done and the things that you do have.
Instead of dwelling on this, the opposite, right?
That's exactly right. And it's so easy to do that.
It's easy to fall into that.
Right, because guess what happens when you start thinking about what you don't have, what hasn't happened so far, and why is it taking so long? You start to hate yourself, not love yourself. Think about that.
But we always talk about giving people grace, but we forget to give it to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
When we're going through.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that.
Yeah.
We're always so quick to give it out or say, hey, you should give them grace. Hey, they're going through this. But you have to also think about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think it's key. So I know it's different. And this is, again, typically we would talk about is setting new patterns, right? Because habits strung together create a pattern.
Right.
And that pattern creates a different result. Like a desired result, or maybe it's not desirable, but it's still a result.
Still a result.
You know what I mean? It's like when I lost the 50 pounds, there was a pattern, habits. When I gained it back, there was a pattern.
Hey.
I'm just saying, there's patterns.
Well, thanks for your vulnerability.
Sure. I mean, I gotta listen. This is self-talk.
Oh my God.
So as I go through my journey, you guys get to see it and witness it and hear about it. So next time you're like, this time this happened, right? So it's just people got to know that we're real people.
Right.
We deal with real patterns ourselves.
Sure.
So journal. That way you could say, oh my gosh, I am grateful for this though.
Yeah.
Got
That's
that?
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, in fact, you know what? I wrote down something that I want to talk about on this one. So I'm going to pull it up here so that we can move forward. So, this is what I want to talk about for journaling because I knew I might forget it.
Okay.
So, in terms of journaling, this helped us out. Write down 3 things every day, and again, you may have an accountability partner to remember this initially. Mm-hmm. So we had each other, and that is write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. When you start doing that, watch how you shift how you feel about yourself. But there got to be 3 things you're grateful for. Just try for a week at first.
What about if it's the same 3 things? Does it have to be 3 different things?
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
But do your best to spend some time on
focusing on what you're grateful for.
Right.
Even if it's the same
exactly
3 things or the same 2 things, right?
Right. Because what happens sometimes as a scapegoat to make it easy, because we don't want to think about it, we just write down the same things. Mm-hmm. Right? You ever been in an environment where somebody says, all right, we need 5 people to volunteer, give an answer on this. And they're like, oh, they already said all my answers. You're being lazy with your thoughts. So think right now, because you have more than what they just said, but it's easier just to say, I don't feel like thinking anymore because I thought about those. I don't feel like really tapping into my mind right now, thinking about another answer that I know I could have, but it's easy for me to say
I do that all the time. Just call me out.
This is the episode is called Vulnerability.
Yes. Well, I mean, I never thought about it like that. It's being lazy.
It is.
It is.
Now, unless they say, look, we need to answer right now. Then they just gave my 3. So honestly, I hadn't thought.
But if you really had time to think.
But if you have time, they say, listen, that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you. It's like, no, they gave my 3. I'm not thinking anymore.
Yeah.
Basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. So so forgiveness and journaling, got those 2. This is what we're talking about, self-love. Right.
I got it.
Or 2. Third one, setting boundaries. Setting boundaries.
Protecting your space.
Yep. Setting boundaries, unapologetic. This is going to help you to love yourself.
Yeah.
Because now, look, I don't accept this.
Right.
And certain things we allow in cause us to hate ourselves. And when that happens, we start to then have to go all the way back to number 1 and forgive ourselves for what we allowed inside of our boundaries.
Wow.
And it's cyclical. And it's over and over again. Now we got to forgive ourselves. Now we got to say what we're grateful for because we allowed certain things in our boundaries, or we didn't set boundaries, period. Now we have to say, I just can't believe this happened. I hate myself. I can't believe that I don't have this. We're not grateful. You see, remember I talk about patterns. So either way, you're setting patterns. You either setting patterns, taking you to a place where you don't like yourself, or you're setting patterns and putting you in a place where you love yourself.
Right.
So you got to break one of those patterns, right?
Well, and also you can mess up sometimes, right? You can be at a good pattern and fall off for a second, but you have to be mindful that it's happening and get right back in line.
That's exactly right. And I shouldn't have said you have to break one of those patterns, because you have a great pattern of doing these 3 things.
Yeah, you're just so hard. So I'm just trying to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Give people like me a little leeway here.
Thank you. I don't mean to be hard. I'm just,
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm here to soften the blow.
Thank you. I am a straight shooter.
You are.
And I'm very solution oriented.
You're very passionate.
I am.
Yes. And we love that about
That's
you.
a nice way of saying you're very passionate.
We love that about you. Don't we, self-talk audience? We do.
So this last one
was
to set boundaries.
Yes.
Is what we'll find is that our space that we've allowed us to be happy in, more likely to continue to create a harvest of happiness, because the only things we allowed it planted in this garden are the things that we've allowed inside of our garden. When other people come to our garden because there was no boundary and they sowed a seed of negativity. It felt in that moment like it was okay, they're not too bad. But that seed, after being cultivated, creates a harvest.
Right.
And that harvest also drops seeds. So an apple tree, which is just a tree, some apples fall to the ground, which means more seed, apple seed, fertilize the ground.
Right.
So before you know it, you have a lot of apple trees. In that case, that's nice because apples are healthy. Let's take the opposite.
Right.
What happens when they're negative seeds? And now you have a forest of negativity, which felt like it was just a seed, but we allowed it in because there was no boundaries. And now we can't even see our way to positivity because that negativity brought more negativity. Because sometimes even a person who's negative brings about more negativity with their associations they bring with them.
Wow. Yeah.
And we don't even realize it. Well, we realize it because when you're positive, you quickly are aware of those who bring negative energy in your space.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
quickly, you're like, ew. Like, I mean, you feel it because you're not, if you're like that, it's no big deal. But if you're not like that, you become aware of it quickly.
You notice it really fast.
Yeah. You got to have boundaries. Like, sorry, that I can't. I choose not to.
Right.
All right, guys, that's it. Focus on those 3 things. There's plenty of things that you can do. I'm sure we'll talk about more of them throughout the Self-Talk Experience podcast. But those are 3 things for you today on this episode. Forgive yourself, journal, and just start off doing a week. 3 things that you're grateful for every single day. Find a workout partner, someone who wants to do it with you. Maybe your best friend or someone who you're closest to, because that would be great because then they grow with you. And then thirdly, set some boundaries. What do you allow and what you don't allow?
Right.
But if you've never said that to yourself, if you've never written that down, guess what? You pretty much allow anything because you've never actually stated what you don't allow. All right, guys, been another episode of the Self-Talk Experience. Remember, the things we say to ourselves about ourselves eventually will determine what and even who we attract for ourselves.
What?
You always have an and. Like the audience actually looks for an and now.
And if you practice self-love, you're loving me too.
All right, guys, see ya.
Thank you for listening to the Self-Talk Podcast with Darnell and Tracy Self. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. And we'll see you next time. And remember, talk good to yourself.